Hi, I'm John-Fidel, and you're watching the first episode of Boys Don't Knit. I'm very excited about this, so I hope you have as much fun watching it as I did making it. You're probably wondering why a video about a guy that knits is called Boys Don't Knit. Well, I was inspired by one of my favorite songs by The Cure called Boys Don't Cry. In this song, the lead singer is really sad. He is overwhelmed by all these emotions, and he really wants to cry, but he feels that he can't because part of the gender role of being a male is you don't show those type of emotions. And that's how I feel when I first started knitting. I really love knitting. I love showing it to my family and working on it at home. I was very nervous about taking it out into the open. I was nervous about going to like a Starbucks and knitting or even showing up to my first knitting group. Things quickly changed when I went to my first knitting group. I thought that it was going to be a bunch of women who were going to be very upset that a man was coming into their circle, and it was completely not the case. All the ladies there were really nice, and there was a few other men that were there, and people didn't even care that I was a guy. They were just really interested in the fact that I was a knitter and what else I was into, and just talking and knitting at the same time, and just comparing stories about when we first all started knitting, and that was a lot of fun. And it was also a different case from that when I started taking it into public. There was a lot of looks like, oh, what is he doing? Like, what is that? Oh, that's knitting or crocheting. And I know that's what grandmas do. That's not what, 20-something-year-old men do. And I would get a lot of questions that would either go into more of like, that's a weird thing that you're doing, or that's amazing. They would talk about how it's crazy how men don't, you never see men doing that. And though you may not see men doing it out in the open very much, a ton of men knit. It's one of those crafts that isn't just for one type of person, it's for everybody. So people of all genders, races, age groups, they all knit. And even though it's something that's not really celebrated by male culture, if you were to ever go on Ravelry and just look up men into the groups, you would see a ton of groups come up. I mean, there's groups for everybody. I mean, if you're into Doctor Who and knitting, there's a group for that. If you're into horror movies and knitting, there's a group for that. So, like I said, you just don't have to be one type of person to enjoy it. Since this show is kind of about me and my adventures through knitting, I would like to go a little bit about myself and how I got started into knitting. I started about 3 years ago when I was working with Michael's Arts and Crafts. I had a coworker, Jen, and she knew I wanted to quit smoking, so she suggested learning knitting because that's how she quit smoking. So I took up knitting. I got all my needles and my yarn. Totally wrong needles for yarn, but it was, or for the yarn I was working with, but it was fine. And I just started working with it, and I learned how to knit, purl, cast off, a little bit of gauging and how to follow simple patterns. So I was knitting. I was going into it and just excited about quitting smoking. At that time, I did not quit smoking. In fact, there was times I think where I had to grab a cigarette because I dropped a stitch and I didn't know how to fix it at the time. But it did recently help me quit smoking. I think with knitting plus the other methods I was working on, I did quit smoking altogether. But anyways, back to how I learned to knit and how I got started with that. For the past 3 years, I've been working off and on different projects, and I've didn't always have a project going on. It was just something I did maybe like once every 3 months. It wasn't until about this past summer, or no, this past spring, I always had a project going on. It was either a scarf or a hat because I like doing simple, fast, easy projects, and I was going on vacation and I would take them with me to wherever I was going, doctor's office, things like that. But now I really want to get into more complex patterns, things like fair isles and sweaters and gloves, things that you really need to get down your gauging and make sure your gauging is on top of it in order for it to fit correctly. Because I can do it, it's just, every once in a while I'm just a little bit off to where things are either just a tidbit loose or a tidbit snugged. I'd rather have a little bit loose than snug, but things lately have been coming out just a little bit snugged. I think getting into the more advanced things, my tension's getting a little bit tighter. So once again, I just want to thank everybody for looking at this introduction video. I know I didn't go over any of the projects I'm currently working on, but I just wanted to make this video just to put myself out there and just get a video in here because I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, but I've been wrestling with what's the format of the show going to be, what's my background. It's a bit messy back here, but I'm also a cake decorator, so all this is like Wilton cake decorating supplies. But, I've been wrestling around with what exactly am I going to be doing with these videos. So I just want to get a video out there just so, everyone can meet me, see who I am, see if they think I'm cool or not. And the next video, though, I will be going over the projects that I'm currently working on and the projects I plan on doing in the future. Also go over some patterns that I think are really cool that you should maybe take a look at. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them to me. Pretty much I'm an open book. Anything you want to ask me, I'm cool. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at episode 2.